Very good evening to all. So my name is Tony. So I am been with ThoughtWorks for nearly 4 years. I have overall of 7 years, 7+ years of experience in QA, and I have worked with multiple domains and clients. So currently I'm working for one of the financial client. Yeah. So today, I wanted to share something which is related to what robustness of an automation framework. So the archetypes, whatever I'm going to share, so it's mostly based on my personal experiences. So if you're building a particular framework, an end-to-end framework or UI automation framework, so what are the archetypes you need to consider? So not at all, not only the tool selection on the language selection. So apart from that, we need to build a framework that should be very strong enough for all kind of testing, or all kind of, if I have anything let's say I wanted to update anything in my framework, so it should accommodate those changes. So this is one sample example. So let's quickly jump into the presentation part. Okay. So yeah. So can you all able to see my screen?
Yes, Arun.
Yeah. So today's talk, I wanted to share something about robustness and what are the archetypes that can be used for creating a framework, a robust framework. So it can be either an E2E or UI automation. So moreover, I'm going to concentrate on E2E part. So yeah. Okay, so this is the agenda. So a very simple factors we are going to discuss. So by starting the introduction. So introduction is nothing but what is robustness and how we are going to tackle it. And then I wanted to share something about end-to-end test layer and how it works in the test pyramid, and some factors that we need to consider for creating an automation framework. So I wanted to I wanted to show some examples with a tool called Playwright. So I have picked Playwright. So I'm not going to show any demo. So but I wanted to show. So let's say for one particular archetype, how we can accommodate it with Playwright. So this is what I'm going to do today. Yeah. So let's quickly jump onto this. So I think most of you are aware of Playwright Tool. So it is one of the modern testing, end-to-end testing tool for the applications. Now currently it is in very boom in the market. And then it is more reliable. It is more reliable, and also you can it provides more functionality compared to other features compared to other JavaScript tools available in the market. And then one more thing. So by taking the screenshots or recording the whatever the test is happening and showing the results or results in a HTML file is not only a robustness of an automation framework, but there are something else we need to consider when we are going to create an automation framework that needs to be robust. So now let's jump into the criterias, what are the criterias robust E2E automation framework should have. And I'll show some sample snippets with Playwright. So how can I accommodate my robust robust criterias with my Playwright tool? Yeah. So okay, so then we are going to look into the about end-to-end testing. So anyone have any idea about what is end-to-end testing and how it helps us in identifying the bugs? Anybody from the audience? Okay, so yeah, so I think fine. So let's move on. If you have any doubts or questions, or if you wanted to tell anything, right? Maybe you can do it in the Q&A or a Q&A part. Maybe I'll try to answer the questions. Okay, so end-to-end testing layer is one of the topmost testing layer in our testing pyramid. So so as everyone right? So we'll check the whole system behaves correctly as per the requirements. So while doing end-to-end testing, so all the integrations should be happen correctly. If any one integration is missing, then we will be getting some failures. And also so moreover, the testing approach will be from user's perspective. So say I will be testing it in as a user, I'll be testing the scenarios and see how it accommodates the real world scenarios. And then like as you can able to see, right, like it always remains at the top of your testing pyramid. So here in the testing pyramid, so like I'll just give a quick walkthrough. So like we should always write more unit tests. So that means like you will be checking the your system in more isolation, and then like for multiple components, and then you'll be writing your integration test. Then it can be any API functional test or UI test. So based upon the requirements like you need to do. And finally, on the top, like you will be writing the E2E test. So if you consider this, so whenever like the amount of the coverage, right, test coverage, right? So always like unit test should have more coverage. So because like we can also capture most of the bugs at the unit testing level. So this is what, like when we go from the top, like my business value gets added constantly. And also like when we see from the down, so the maintenance cost, like let's say like I can have only 5 to 10 E2E scenarios based upon my flows. So like if you see in my unit test, like for example, I'm saying like I have n number of unit tests. So instead of writing n number of E2E and less number of UI tests, that means the inverted one. So always like we will be approaching it in a pattern of a pyramid. Yeah. So yeah, so unique difference between E2 and API functional test. So here, right? So E2 is like what I have mentioned, right? It will be a real world scenario. So let's say like I'm going to log in to a dashboard and get some customer details. This is a real world, real user will be doing. So, but API functional test, right? Like we don't involve any of the UI part. Instead, what we'll do, so I will just go and check it in with the get calls and post calls, whatever we are having there. This is what the unique difference. E2E, UI will be involved. For API, we don't involve the UI. So it will directly run in the backend. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Yeah. So next we are going to see, so what are the factors we need to consider for robustness? Okay, so let's go into some dictionary meaning. So like everyone knows, right? Like everyone of you know, like robust means strong and healthy or strongly built. So here, whenever we say an automation should be a robust, so that means that framework should be strongly built. Strongly built in the sense, what are the factors we need for a strongly built framework? I think we have one more question. Okay, fine. Yeah, so strongly built in the sense, like for, let's say some real example, let's say you are building a house. So whenever you say the pillar is strong, so when you say a pillar is strong, so that needs some criterias and some materials needs to be used on a proper proportion, and then like it should be done on the perfect time, the design should be perfect. So these are the some criterias for a pillar to be a strongly built. Similarly, for an automation framework also, like we are going to consider some criteria and factors. So not criteria, so most of the factors we are going to see now. So this is purely based upon some of my personal experience, like while creating the frameworks, and then like having multiple having worked with multiple frameworks, like from the scratch or from in between. So like I have picked up some 8 to 10 factors that we need to consider while creating a framework, apart from having the test results and the HTML files, and then like your what to say, the recordings and screenshots and all that. So apart from this, like that also have included, but on top of that, we need to consider some other factors, like not only the best selection tool strategy, instead also like we need to, even though when we are going to select a best tool, so on top of that, like we need to consider some factors there. Okay. Yeah. So these are some of the factors like I have considered for robustness. So the first one, like I think everyone will be aware, right? So the framework maintenance and design, it should be easy for maintaining, and we need to do a design with some patterns. And then the test data management, reusability. So reusability of the framework, and also the test cases and the helper classes and everything. And adaptability. So let's say like we are going to do any change, or like if I wanted to run my tests on some particular criteria. So for that, like let's say we'll going to consider some adaptability. And reporting, so this one, like everyone, will be aware. Integration with pipeline, so this also will be even. So screenshots and recording. So here, like we are going to discuss, like how can we accommodate our screenshots and recordings, like so not taking screenshots on all the shots. So like we are going to see how we are going to accommodate only for particular things. Cross browser and cross platform. So how can you run your tests parallelly in 3 different browsers? And how can you run, so like let's say like I'm creating my script in Mac, and like I'll just share the framework in Windows machine and see how it is working. So cross platform. And finally we're going to see about resilience. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the explanation part. So first one, so framework design and maintenance. So I think this one is a common terminology, like everyone must be aware, everyone should be aware and must be aware. So the first one is like the design pattern. So mostly like we'll go with page object model or singleton pattern. And then like the next one is framework should be created with some provision of maintaining the page objects and test data and test. So nowadays, like we don't want to go with page objects. So instead, like we are having testing library. So where we'll be testing it in a user-centric way. So I don't store any of my page object or page object model. I don't use any of the page classes. Instead, like directly, let's say as a login page, how a user tests. So user go and identify the username text box, enter that value, then identify the password text box, enter the value, click on the login button. So instead of maintaining separate page objects or page classes, so like we just test it in user-centric way. So those things are also should be considered. And then like the wait command. So normally like we'll be using explicit wait or implicit wait or thread.sleep when we go with Java Selenium. So instead, like we can also configure our wait time in the configuration file itself directly. And also there should be some single entry point for running the tests and maintaining the configuration. So for example, like here we are going to see about playwright.config.js. So if you are using some JavaScript, like it would be JS. And if you are going to use some TypeScript, it would be TS. And then like easy maintenance. So here, like I'll just have mentioned like what are the maintenance. So easy to maintain, like let's say like I wanted, so some requirement has changed. So now you wanted to update something in your framework, or else like client has asked you to add something in your framework. Like, so, okay, you just remove the normal HTML report and add allure report there. So how we will do that? So it should be easy to do that. So here, if you see here, like just one line of command is enough in your configuration file. You don't want to do anything there. Just install that allure reporter and make the changes. And then like, so whenever we go with some page object model or other patterns, right, like, so we need to maintain a separate page object class for maintaining the elements. And then that page class should contain all the necessary actions that we are going to do it in a page. So let's say like if I have a login page, so like, so not only entering the username and password, but also clearing the username and password, clicking on login button. So these are some of the common methodologies that we maintain in that particular page, that we do in a particular page. And finally, like I think everyone will be aware, having a base class that contains all the generic methods and common method elements that needs to be used overall in our framework. So quickly, I can show you the framework structure now. Yeah. So this is the framework structure I have created. So let's see. Yeah. So if you see here, like allure report folder will be generated. I have created a helpers.
We are not able to see the ID.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I just stop and I just shared the presentation part only. I'll just share my whole desktop. Can
Yes.
you able to see now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I have created a helpers so that will act as a hooks for before and after test. And then like I have added a page class folder to maintain all my page objects and elements, whatever I'm going to do, and test data. So just to maintain the data. So here I have used some user authentication data here, and then like the tests. So you should have a separate test folder and videos. So like if you are going to capture any of your videos, you should have a videos folder. Like it will automatically give you the videos folder here. Videos and screenshot folder, it will automatically gives you. And then your page package.json file to maintain all the dependencies. And then like the playwright.config.ts, the configuration file that should be there for maintaining like all your framework setup configurations. Like, so I will show you in detail in the upcoming slides. So there is one. Somebody has okay. I'll try to answer it in the last. Okay. So next comes for the test data management, and here also like most of you would be aware about this. So like we need to have separate test data. Like we should not use hard-coded test data in our framework. And then like it can be maintained in any of the format. So it can be JSON or XML, whatever format. Some if you are going with some Java with Selenium, you can maintain it in your property files also. And then like your test, like it should be easy to provision. Like let's say like I wanted to have some data that needs to be paused in my test case. So like it should be easy to provision. And in most of the cases, like we expect some data that should be generated from the test, like by extracting it using get text in Selenium. For example, like I wanted to extract a particular text of a label or a div element. So that should be that those things and all, like for particular test data, like we should maintain and provision that, and then like we need to use it in your tests by using some asserts and directly calling to the JSON file. And then like there should be some, let's say like if you are using any mock, so like if you are using OM mock and if you are trying to mock any of the UI, right? So on that part, like you should have setup and tear down. The setup method hook will always have like setting up your mock and required data setup, and tear down will always clear your mocks and steps after the execution. So this is what the test data maintenance, about test data maintenance. Yeah, so let's move on to this question. Yeah, so like the language, right? Like I am not considering the language here. So I'm just considering the factors for our framework to be robust. So on top of that, so moreover, like what I would suggest, right? Like for example, if you're going to do some UI automation, and then like your application belongs to AngularJS. So what you need to do, so you need to consider selecting the tools that will always help us to that will always have some connectivity with the development. So like let's say like UI is in AngularJS, you can always go on AngularJS and TypeScript. So you can always go with some tools that support AngularJS, like Puppeteer, Cypress, or Playwright, whatever you want. So like I am not going to this. I'm not telling it won't add or it will add robustness, but my presentation and content is related to what are the factors apart from that we need to consider for robustness. So, and then like Mayank has asked, it is feasible to write E2E with tools provides this, it's okay. To write API, do suggest some. Okay, so for writing API also, like we have JavaScript tools like NodeFetch, Supertest, and then Frisbee. So those, so Frisbee and Frisbee tool comes with just runners. So it comes as like what we do with E2E, right? Describe and it and test whatever it has. So you can go with Frisbee or NodeFetch or Supertest, whatever tool you wanted for API functional testing. Yeah, so Madan has given some like we have different types like BDD and TDD, among which is the perfect example for robust framework. So I would suggest like the testing approach, right? Like mostly like TDD, test-driven approach, like we will be doing mostly with the unit test. So when it comes to like BDD, behavior-driven, so like I would consider like we can also go with BDD approach for our robust framework. Like so only the Gherkin part alone, like we can write it in normal English, and then like all other functionalities we can have it. So I would suggest like both BDD and TDD, but moreover, like we'll try to separate. So TDD, maybe we can morely we can collect with the unit testing. For E2E, like mostly we can go with BDD. So running tests in parallelly, like I'll just come about that one. So we have one of the factors for that one. So storing on credentials. So I am not talking about storing on credentials here. Just so I have taken one example. So where we are going to use some reusability part in it. So like I am not going to store any credentials there. Like we are just going to see how we can make sure like your user data is authenticated and you can use it there. So like I am not going to have anything about sensitive data. So just a dummy data for making sure like how we are store the data and reuse it for our login and other purposes.
Yeah, Arun, there is Sriram asked one of the question in chat. If we load any JSON file for the test in mock, we need to import the data before test execution and clear the data after the test execution. Can you please explain this, like how to clear the data?
Yeah, so like if you are using wiremark, right? Like I think from wiremark you can you have some inbuilt methods to clear the data. So I have used it like long back in ThoughtWorks, like three years back, but I don't remember like what was that exact method. So if you are trying to use some stub if you're creating a stub and trying to use it with the wiremark, right? In the after hooks, like you can always like I think clear stub some method is there, so you can clear everything there. So maybe like I can tell you, like I'll just refer and tell you. Okay. Yeah. So let's move on to the next one. So we have one more question. Each test should be independent of one another, or do we nest scenarios? So I would suggest. Okay, so okay, so maybe like I'll just give my opinion. So if like mostly what I think, right? Like if we are going to have some nesting, so let's say first I will be logging, and then like I will be loading in my dashboard, doing some verification in my dashboard, then click on a customer and retrieve the details. So this is one nesting scenario. So and this will be happen for all the, let's say like dashboard functionality is one of my test suite. So this happens for all the test cases, right? So what I will do, instead of nesting, like mostly like I will try to go with hooks, login, verify the dashboard. So this will be in my before hooks. And then like for each and every test, so like we need to test with multiple customer data, right? So for that, like I'll maintain each and every, like I'll just have each and every, like I'll just have separate tests there. Okay. Playwright now comes with Playwright test runner and VS Code extension to debug and execute your test in Playwright. Okay, so for Playwright, right, like so it comes with one test runner. So, yeah, so it is considered to be one of the robust one. And also for debugging and execution, also like we will be considering it as robust, one of the factor for robustness. So I think like you're right, like when we are, so I just showed it in IntelliJ. So like we have some extensions in VS Code also. So this is also like nowadays, like it is considered as one of the robust factors for having the debug and execute debug features, and like having the trace facility, traceability, and those kind of things. Okay. Yeah. So then we'll move on to the, okay. Okay, let me answer. So after this slide, let me try to answer these questions. Yeah, so reusability, right? So like making the test methods reusable. So that is what like mostly we'll just go with frameworks. And then like some examples are like maintaining the signed in state for some time. And this is a normal one, creating usable methods. But this one, right, like let's say I wanted to test for a lawsuit. So the same login I'm going to use, but I wanted to maintain the state. So each and every time I don't want to log in back and see those things. So for that, right, like we can use one of the inbuilt method called use test.use in Playwright. What it does, right, like we need to write a helper class. to make our login functionality. So what this helper class does, so it just store our login details in a JSON, and then like you can make use of this particular JSON file in your describe hook. So what it does, let's say like you have 20 test cases. So each and every time you don't want to log in, or you don't want to use a before hook for login before all or before each. So instead what I will do, so I'll just load this particular JSON whenever my suit is getting executed. And then like I will use the same login for across all the test cases in a particular suit. Let's say like I have 20 or 30 something. So next comes the adaptability. So adaptability is nothing but like normal dictionary meaning. So like being able to adjust for new conditions. So let's say like my framework should have a single entry point for changing the configurations. So let's say like instead like I wanted to make so like I'm just running my case, running my test with Playwright in only one browser. So some requirement, due to some requirement, or like we are going to upgrade our framework. So I wanted to make all the tests that should run parallelly in some two like 3 browsers, like Playwright supports like Chromium, Firefox, and Safari. So like in this case, right, like you need to do something. So I don't want to go and write my browser name in the run command or something else. So instead, like my configuration file. So if I update something in my configuration file, so it will work based upon that, whatever input I have given for the browser commands. And also like retry on failure. So let's say like my case got failed. So I wanted to do some retry on failures. And then like in some scenarios, so there are 20 test cases. One particular test case got failed. So each 20 test cases are not dependent on each other. So one particular test case got failed. So in this point, like I don't want to stop the execution. Instead, like I wanted to continue the execution for the remaining 17 or 19 test cases, right? So you can use some soft assertions. So if you use the soft command, right, like even though if the particular, whenever it finds this soft and this assertion is getting failed, right, it will fail that test case and move on to the next test case. So these are the things like I will consider for adaptability part. And reporting. So like reporting, like as everyone knows, so like it should be an HTML format. So not only the test case details, like here, like I wanted to share something about the trends of the failures, the trends of the passing, and then like in which environment I am executing the test. If I'm facing any bug, like how that bug is getting reflected in my report, and the test case execution, so the suit execution, and attaching the if you see here, like you can also able to, like I haven't configured the histories and retries, so you can also configure your histories and retries in your test. So like how many times you have retried the particular test case during failure, like how many times you have executed this particular test case, and attaching the screenshots and then video recordings for your test case. So like not only attaching the for all that, it should not attach for all the steps. So whenever I wanted to whenever some failure has happened, like I wanted to attach my test cases. So these are not like by having a single line of command, so a single configuration command. So I wanted to do everything. So not like I don't want to write a separate code for this, or maintain a separate configuration file. Instead, like I'll just write a single configuration, single command in my configuration file and make this happen. So like if you see here, I have added a GIF here. So you can able to see the failures. Can you able to see the recordings and the screenshots below? So everything, so that will happen in a single command. So I haven't written a separate configuration file or maintaining a separate file there. So instead, like only one configuration line that helps me to do all these things. So I have taken an example for Allure report, like because like I have worked more with like I have worked frequently with Allure here. So like you can able to see the failure count, the pass count, the skip count, the status, the severity. Like if I found if I consider anything as a bug, or if any element is not found, or something happens, right? So if you see here the product defects, if you see here, like it has maintained all the failures as product defects. Like you can go and take a look into those things. So this is for reporting part. And then like so integration with actually I thought of showing a demo, but like with AWS. So, but like my credentials got expired, so I could not able to connect it to that. So like I need to pay it again. So like I'll just give some quick things. So how we are going to run your tests in CI/CD. So moreover, like if you wanted to integrate your E2E test in your deployment pipeline. So let's say like you are going to deploy some changes like from dev environment to test environment. So how you are going to integrate it, your E2E tests in your pipeline, and like in which stage you are going to do, how like the playwright, the playwright, right? Like how it acts, gives you the provision to access your pipelines and make it run during the deployments. And also like you can go ahead one more step also and see like how your UI test, like E2E or UI test allows is running whenever if you do a commit in your front end code base. So let's say like you are maintaining your tests in the front end repo itself. Each and every time if a developer is committing the changes, so I wanted to run my tests in the pipeline before I am just building my artifacts. So these are something like we need to consider for integrating with integration CI/CD, and also like how I am like what are the different kind of tools I can able to integrate. So let's say like so this is purely based upon the client requirement. So some clients may prefer Azure, some may prefer AWS, some may prefer Jenkins. So here, whatever framework you are writing, right, like it should support the integration with all your tools. So like you can write a shell script for making it happen, or else you can directly run your test by giving some shell commands inside your pipeline part. And these other things like I will consider as some consider integration CI/CD also a robust one. So it should be a total package of framework. So like if you're going to share it, or if you're making it to use it everywhere in your organization, so like everything that should happen. So all the features should be there here. And then screenshots and recordings. So like as usual, like so like here, instead of writing a code for screenshot, let's say like in Selenium, like we'll do take driver screenshot, I think. So in Puppeteer and all, like we will be writing with the, it provides a method inbuilt API for taking the screenshots. But here, like what I would suggest, so you, whenever you are trying to take a screenshot, so you wanted to just give it in your configuration file. So let me show the configuration file once. So if you see here, see, I have given screenshot only on failure. So I would like to take the screenshots only on failure. And also for videos, so I would like to retain only on failure. If anything is getting failed, I will be retaining the videos here. If anything is getting failed, like I will be taking the screenshot. And also like you can provide your video directory, like where it should be saved. And for screenshot also, you can say like you can say where your screenshot should be saved. But here, like I'm going to directly attach it in my report. So I haven't mentioned anything. So it will directly go and attach it in your earlier report. So now if you see here, like there are three parameters for screenshot. So one is off, that don't take screenshots forever. One is on, so it will take screenshot for all the steps, like for all the tests, and only on failure. So whenever the test is getting failed, it will take a screenshot on a particular step. Similarly for video also, you will be having I think 2 or 3, I think so. Same 4 things. Off, it don't take a video record. On, it will always take a video and store it in the folder, whatever you mentioned. Retain on failure. So it will record for each test, but remove the videos for all the past test cases. And then first on retry. So it will be recording the video whenever we are retrying a test for the first time alone. And also you can make your video mode, and then you can see like how you can also update your viewport sites for your videos. So these are things. So let's say like if your client wants to have a video for all the test cases, you just make it on. So it will automatically take all the test cases. So like if your client wants only for failures, you just make this happen. Like you just add this particular value here. Or else like you wanted to you wanted to record the videos only for the first retry for the failure, right? Failure or pass. So it will be maintained here. So this one, all right, like I'm not adding any code in my test cases. If you see here, I don't add any test. Yeah, so I don't add any tests here. Sorry, so I don't add anything here. So I'll just, if you see here, I have just written only the WebDriver navigation, the URL navigation, and then like I'll just doing some assertions. So the thing is like I am directly giving it my configuration file so that like it will take the screenshots and it will attach it in my report directly. So the thing is like you wanted to install the dependency of the Allure report and add this particular line Allure Playwright into your reporter in configuration, and then like you wanted to provide whatever kind of video or screenshot you want. So this is like if you see here, moreover it is like a 3-step dependency installation, adding the package in your reporter, and then like making your configurations for your screenshots and failure videos. Yeah. Okay, so let's go for the Q&A. So for API tests, you had mentioned few test frameworks and then the Playwright. While combining all these frameworks, do you face any? No, sorry. I think I missed a part. So with API, with Playwright also, you can do your API testing. So I haven't included that part. So with Playwright also, you can. So that will be a total package. So if you see, so if you are choosing some tool, I am not talking about Playwright. So some tool that has all the capability of writing the UA test, writing the like UA mocking test, and writing E2E, and having your API also. So everything will be in a package. So you can say your framework is a robust one. So based upon you are just going to you are just having all the functionality, like all kind of testing that happens in your framework. Does screenshot differ when you run it in local versus in CI/CD? This one, right? I haven't tried out with this particular framework. So as I said, right? So my AWS key got expired, so I could not able to do that. So I'm not sure. But moreover, it won't differ. So I'm not sure. I don't go for a sure short answer because I haven't tried it with this particular framework. Okay, as we are passing locators directly from the script, for example, if any locator change. No. So whatever I showed was a linear framework. So I have a test case with page object model also. So maybe I will show you that. So it was just for a sample, I just created the test case. So with page object model, I have created one test case. Maybe I can show that to you. Is there a display the screenshots? Yeah, so I think I'll just show it one more time. So if you see here, can you see it has added the video and also it has added the screenshot here, this part in this one. So that is what I'm telling. Like just 3 steps if you wanted to add your screenshots and reports. If you use Allure with your Playwright one. So install the Allure dependencies, add that Allure dependency in your reporter configuration, and then give your values for your videos and screenshots. It will automatically add your screenshots there. So I haven't worked more with API. So I have worked more with UA and E2E. So anybody want to give a shot for this question? So what kind of design patterns we use for API testing? Anybody from the panel?
Yeah, maybe I can try for API testing, generally I have seen people do use singleton pattern. Uh, People do use factory pattern also for some of the scenarios or the in the robust framework. But again, on this question, there are multiple design patterns. It depends on what kind of requirement you have in the API testing. It doesn't matter whether it's for UI or API, but it depends on your requirement, basically what kind of functionality you need in the framework. So let's say for example, for all the tests to execute, you want to create a single object. Then in that case, singleton pattern you can use. So that is not specific to API or UI. So it depends on your requirement, basically, what kind of framework you can use. There's no restriction that, okay, UI automation has some different design patterns and API does have different patterns. It's not like that.
Thank you, Tusha. Okay, so like I think we have 4 more minutes. So like let me quickly show the remaining 2 slides. So next is like as somebody has like parallel testing and cross browser. So like whatever the framework you are creating and choosing the tool, right? Like it should be able to run the tests in multiple browsers. Like I would suggest. So now, right, like most of the JavaScript tools always comes with Chromium. So we don't want to go with some WebDriver concepts. So here, right, like it is very easy for you. So you can always configure everything in your config file. So just give the name of the browser you are going to run here. So like these are 3 browsers Playwright supports. And then like if you just make it like this, so your test will run in all the 3 browsers parallelly, not on not in a thread wise. It will run in parallelly and it will give you the results. So and if you wanted to run anything specific, right? Like let's say like you have configured all the 3 browsers, but you wanted to run only in this particular browser. Just you need to give a command in the command line. You just give like normally you'll just give the commands like this. So yeah, so if you see here, right, like yeah, so similarly hyphen project browser name project name equal to so project name equal to like whatever browser you have mentioned, like you wanted to run. So or else, right, like what you can do, right, like you can have 2 configurations file. So one can be for your test configuration and one can be your overall framework configuration. So you can add it in your test configuration part. So let's say like you wanted all your tests to run in you wanted to run all your tests in parallelly in all 3 different browsers, right? You can directly write it in you can create a config file in your test folder and add this particular section of code in your configuration file so that like your test will run in parallel. And also like they Playwright also here in Playwright, like one part I wanted to say with Playwright. So you wanted to if you wanted to run in multiple same thing in 4 workers, all right. So you can also like give a command called workers. So it will automatically distribute the tests in 4 different workers, the 4 different threads. So on cross-platform support, it's moreover like what I said, right? So like I am writing my tests in Mac and just sharing my framework who is using Windows. So it should work. And also like I wanted to run it in CA, it should work. So it should work in headed or headless mode. So anyway, it should work. It should work. So there is what cross support. So everywhere it should support. My test should be running without seamlessly without any issues. And resilience. So as usual, so what is resilient? So it means like strong and is strong enough to overcome any failures or breaks. Let's say like we have a data server. So like if you see like we'll that's the nowadays like we have all powerful cloud providers and data providers. So even though like if anything happens, like so I remember like when I started my career, so we always have some physical servers, some natural calamities might happen, and then that server will be collapsed for some time until everything is getting ready. So so that means like so it is not resilient. So now like so if you say now we have cloud, so nothing won't affect it. So everything we have it in your cloud. So similarly for automation framework, so like even though any failures or break that happens, like what are the resilient, what are the things you can come up with resilience? So like so mostly like I will say resilience is with timeouts and auto waits. So like here, like we should not use any artificial timeouts or like in your tests. So instead, like what you can do, so you just make the configuration in your config.ts file. So this timeout, right? Like so 30 into 1000, so it is 30,000 milliseconds. So it can be for a test. So that is if anything that has happened, so the timeout for a particular test will be 30,000 milliseconds. And another one, so you can add your timeout for your assertions also. So like if you are wanted to, if you are expecting something, like for example, I have given an example here. So expect locator should have some text. So but what it should do, right? It should like normally if like by default, like in Selenium Java, like what we'll do, so we'll be using some explicit waits until that condition is met. So it will be waiting until that. So here, right, like I don't want to do explicitly mention anything here. Instead, like I'll just give some timeout as 5,000. So for this particular assertion needs to happen in your framework. Whenever it finds an expect, the timeout for this expect is 5,000 milliseconds. So after 5,000 milliseconds, if you don't find any, if your condition is not met, right, so automatically like my test will throw the timeout exception here. And also like the tracing facilities. So like what are the things, like somebody asked about debugging, right? So that is also like that comes under this one. And also moreover the dynamic assertions, I would say. So like for dynamic assertions also, like I am not mentioning anything specific there. So instead I'm just giving like expect dot to have text, expect dot to be visible. So that is what like my assertion should contain. So these are some of the these are something which is related resilient. So this is how you can come up with your the framework, whatever you are going to create. So okay, so quickly I'll just go to the page object model. So this is the page object model test I have added. So it's a simple test. Like I use the existing because like I'm not showing any demo. So I'll just use the existing test case that was present in the Playwright dev. And if you see here, I have created a page class here. So all my tests, all my objects will be here. And also like the default functionalities, whatever I'm going to do in that particular page, I have added it here. Similarly, if you see here, the same thing. So this is another page. So I'll just add something here like this. Yeah, so if you see a test, I'll just add some basic test that should that will go to the playwright.dev and then just see whether this particular locator contains this text. This is what I have done. Yeah, so the okay. Let me see.
Yeah, are there any questions?
Yeah, there is one question. So mapping test case documentation to automation test separately or use Gherkin, or what approach you use? So like so recently like test case documentation. So currently I'm working with a tool. So like we have a tool for maintaining all the test cases. So we are just linking the test cases ID in our framework. So this is what we have used. So, and also like apart from that, like I haven't tried out with the mapping with the Gherkin. So like, so I'm not sure anyone wanted to give a shot for this. So I am using currently I'm using a test management tool. So where I just maintain all my test cases, it will generate an ID. And then like, I'll just use that ID in my automation tests to make sure like my automation tests are getting updated for the particular test case. The status are getting particularly updated there. So how do you ensure 100% automation coverage? How do you ensure better coverage? So this one, right, like as I said, right, the test permit. So we mostly in ThoughtWorks, we follow with test permits. So we'll try to cover more unit tests. On top of that, we'll have integration. So like when we are doing the desk checks and all, right, like we'll just check for the unit testing coverage also. What are the possibilities that can be covered in your unit test, and like what are the areas you can try to cover it in your unit test. So on top of that, if you are trying to cover most of the things in your unit test, so automatically when it comes to the top of the pyramid, so you don't want to put more effort on writing your test cases there, like E2E test cases there. Let's say like I have login, dashboard, and then some customer details. So like these are three things I'm going to have, three components. So like if you're trying to cover most of your test cases in the, like most of your coverage in unit test, so your automation E2E will be very simple. Just write a E2E for login, then launch the dashboard and go for a customer. So that's it, your coverage will be. So the thing is like, so in ThoughtWorks, like we mostly follow the pyramid where we will write most of the test cases there. If test case fail in one particular step, does Playwright? Yeah, so this is what, this is, okay, has the capability to run that from that steps. It does not run from that step. So instead, like you can use soft assertions there and see like if it is it can resume with the other tests, and then like you can try to run the test on fail or retry method, retry capabilities, and you can run that one. Tagging is also there. So like it's not the exact tagging. So maybe just a minute. Like I had one more thing. Let me check that. Like I had one more content. So where I just added about these things. So like we don't have taggings. Like we have annotations. Like so like the skip and fail and make your, like let's say like if the test case involves some, like you consider if you're writing an ETV test case that involves some external systems also, like whatever data you are going to send, so it will reach your external system and come back to you via your internal server, and then like it reaches the UI. So in this case sometimes we don't know, right, like how much time it may take. So like what we can do, right, like you can use some annotation called test.slow. So that means like that particular test will triples the test timeout. So normally our test timeout was 30,000 milliseconds. Now it will be 90,000 milliseconds. So this is one thing. And then like, so if you think like if you wanted to skip any particular test case, so you can use a skip method there. So we don't have, we have annotations. And the thing is like you can tag your test cases. So like you can maybe like you can have some tags like you can give your user defined tags, and also like you can, there are two things like what one was fast and slow. So like you can make that fast and slow there, and then like you can use some grep in your test command, and then see like but that particular fast and slow test cases will run. This is an example, but like what they have provided. You can also give some user defined, like how we give in Cucumber, right? Regression, smoke, or sanity. Similarly, you can use that. And but for that, right, for the tag should be for the particular test case with tags. So you need to use the grep command. So what it will do? So using grep command, let's say like I have given at regression. So in my particular test suite, so wherever the at regression tag is there, so it will try to run that. It will run that test cases alone. Okay, retry mechanism, will it run the entire test or assertion? So it will run the test alone, so it won't run from that particular step. To execute CI, can we use Bamboo with grid and remote? Yeah, CI part, like I haven't tried out with this particular framework. So if anybody wants to, who have worked with Bamboo and grid, like anybody wants to give an answer for this?
Yes, I think we can use Bamboo for the CI, because CI also provides you the ability, like to run your automation test in any environment of your choice. So I think you can go for like Bamboo too.
Okay, so the next is environment specific timeout. I think like we don't have environment specific timeout. So like we have test timeout except, and then navigation, a global timeout, and then like for a particular fixture we wanted to do any timeout. So these are things are there. So I'm not sure about the environment timeouts.
I think Arun, they're talking about like if the environment got stuck, then how much time we need to wait for the test.
Okay. So that one, right? Like, okay. So you can configure. Like, we don't have specific. We don't want it to specific. I think we don't have any specific provision for configure. Generally, the timeout, right? So these are timeouts that provides like the test timeouts, assertion timeouts, and global timeouts. I think you can give it in your global timeouts parameter for them. Okay, so retries, I think somebody has. So I think it will run the test. It will run the total test. So for that, right, if you wanted to retry a particular failing test, right, like you need to add a command in your command line, like hyphen retries, and how many attempts you wanted to try. So, or else, like simply what you can do, instead of rewriting your test commands, instead what you can do, you can directly go and write it in your configuration file as retries parameter. So retries : some what value you want. So that also you can do it there.